Natuk Lin Yung and Vicki Couzens, Keerray Woorroong Gunditjmara, Natumwa Maya Pawang and Nutjung Wanyu, Mangnuru Watanu, Bunmorang, Morandri, Ngalamin Kuraki Napun, Narakitung, Wanyu, Miringanyi, Makatapa. I've just introduced myself and said my respects to the ancestors of the country and the elders and community of this country that we gather on. The Kulin Nations, the Wurundjeri and the Bunwurrung peoples of the Birrarung, the beautiful river of mists. Thank you, Len, and that's Yangi Yangi Nutjung, deadly strong. And I accept the Karet Pitin message stick on behalf of VACL as the chairperson of the Victorian Aboriginal Corporation for Languages, and I will ensure that I give this to, we have both traditional custodian membership in our organisation and on the board, so I will pass this on, and we'll look to come for a visit over in beautiful Noongar country. I'm going to just put a few notes up in case I forget what I want to talk about. I'm very fortunate to be here and honoured to be coming and talking about Aboriginal languages and what's happening in Victoria, and of course in the bigger context of the importance and significance of our languages, our Indigenous languages. And we know that all Australian Aboriginal languages are endangered, if you didn't know that already. None of them are safe, and we're losing languages at a very fast rate across the world, but particularly in Australia. We are the longest, oldest living culture in the world, and so we have the oldest living languages in the world. The Victorian Aboriginal Corporation for Languages has been established for 25 years, and I'd like to pay my respects to Uncle Sandy Atkinson, who's passed now, and the other founding members, including my father, who set up VACL for short, 25 years ago this year. So we're having a major celebration of that and an honouring of our elders and all those who've gone before us, because without them, you know, we are nothing. We are following in their footsteps and carrying the work and the knowledges into the future. So we've had a bit of we're in a transformational phase actually at VACL. We've had a little bit of a wobbly time about 18 months ago. We were without a CEO for about 18 months, and we now have a new CEO and our board is refreshed. We have a youth leadership program that we're developing and mentoring young people into, and young people I mean like around 35 down, not just 16 to 25 or something. So we're really excited, and we have a 25-year vision and strategic plan that we're developing. And so we're like the phoenix rising from the ashes in this exciting year of UNESCO's International Year of Indigenous Languages. We have a year-long calendar of celebrations, and the first event is actually taking off today, and it's a printmaking workshop which I'm heading off to after this panel discussion with everyone. So I'm sorry I won't be around to have a yarn with any of you, but please feel free to contact me through VACL. You can find our website, which doesn't work very good because that's another thing we're refreshing. But please have a look anyway and try and find your way around on there. So our exciting new vision is about living languages legacy. That's kind of what our new strategic plan is titled, and that's what it's all about. Our promise to our communities is living languages for all Victorian Aboriginal people. We've had changing technologies and increased demand for Aboriginal language and linguistic expertise, advice and guidance. And VACL has reviewed our strategic direction and practices and our corporation structure to meet those community expectations and strengthen our positioning within the Victorian Cultural Heritage Framework. So we have a national cultural heritage Act, and we have a State Cultural Heritage Act, and languages are included under that in intangible heritage. And so VACL, as the state peak body, advocacy body for Aboriginal languages in Victoria, we're kind of custodians and advocacy on behalf of all of our traditional custodian groups. We have 4 kind of key themes or areas: our language, our heritage, our mobs and our knowledge systems, because language is the repository of our cultural knowledges. It's our kinship systems, it's our law, it's our stories, it's our belonging and our place. So languages are vital to our ongoing survival and flourishing. And so we're so excited at VACL. We have, like I said, the workshop. We are launching a new, completely designed by us and owned by us. So Google and Facebook have no rights on our new data archive system that we're launching in April, I think it is. That's one of our events. We have a big celebratory event, the 25-year event in NAIDOC Week. We're having, and I have to let you guys know, we're having a language symposium at RMIT looking at decolonising and how we decolonise language revitalisation. And just on that, it's really kind of key in the context of why all you guys are here around governance, and that we are restructuring VACL. It's always been an wholly Aboriginal board, but we are operating from a cultural framework, and all of our programs, projects and implementation strategies and that are designed around cultural ways of doing. We comply with our required, reporting requirements and funding things and all that financial stuff and that you have to do, but we run our organisation through a cultural way of being and doing, which supports our workers and our community and the board and our whole statewide groups. There's over 44 languages in Victoria, if you didn't know that as well. Just remembered, you might not know that. So we're really excited about this. We've just relocated our main administration office to Melbourne, so we're to Geelong. We're decentralising and we're getting our languages back out into community, because we've only had a small organisation located in Melbourne, so it's really difficult to get out to. Well, it might not seem remote when you compare it to Western Australia, but some of our areas are still a bit remote to get to and access for people. So we're setting up 3 language centre hubs in along the river in Robinvale, out at Healesville, Geelong, and then we're retaining one in Melbourne. So we look at our language work, it's holistic, it's across all of the different areas in our life. So we have a lot of creative cultural expression, so we look at language and revitalising language through those creative cultural expression ways, which are old ways, song, dance and ceremony, things like that. One of the key things is our sovereign self-determining processes and ways that we're going about our business, and we are placing our focus and what is our core business at front and centre of what we do, because we can very easily get distracted by demands from government agencies, organisations and mainstream for wanting to access and use our languages. So we have made a recommitment to our core business of focusing on languages for our mobs, so for us, by us, and nothing about us without us. And this, I think, speaks to what can you do and what can everybody do out there to support us in our work and support our communities out in the regions in language revitalisation. Because I was just talking to Len, and Len's a speaker. He grew up around language. He's a speaker. We have no speakers. There's 2 Victorian languages that have a couple of fluent speakers, and the rest of us are doing reclamation and revitalisation from a few known words and phrases in community, and our Aboriginal English, which are Aboriginal ways of speaking. But and our kinship terms. We use a lot of kinship terms still, but they're all in English. So we have that inherent knowledge system still embedded in our communities, but our language is scarce, and so we are revitalising it through historical records where some people have got tapes as well as the written records, but we're having to redream and reinterpret our languages back into our way of doing and being now in the 21st century. So we also have to make it relevant. What we currently receive, only receive federal funding. So one of my soapbox things is lobby the state government, please, because we get no ongoing, infrastructure or any support from the state government for Victorian Aboriginal languages at present. We are in partnership and delivering Cert 3 and 4 in teaching an Aboriginal language, and we have 20 language custodians learning to do that, but that's driven by the desire for the mainstream to have Aboriginal languages in schools and education. It's not necessarily the priority for us. So we want to be the drivers of our own direction in how we go about and what we do and what are our goals and aspirations for language in our communities. Having said that, we are going to meet with Gavin Jennings in a couple of weeks, so I don't want to offend anybody too much because we're hoping that he'll come on board and support us, and I'm sure he will. We've got a bit of a history with Gavin, but New South Wales has a state language policy and they have funding, and I think they're about the only mob in Australia who gets that level of support from the state. And so we are working towards the State Language Policy and Act. And one of our other really key, it's one of the aspirations is for us to have a Research and Language Institute centre that is driven, again, like I said, our core business and the things that we want to do. I think I'll stop there for a minute about VACL and just give you an example of some of the applications of the work that we do. We do apps and digital stuff. I'm not really good at that, but you can find some of them things on the website and in the App Store. We have books, we do publishing, and we've done a major research project a few years back on what are revitalisation languages and what are people actually really doing in communities now. And the typology of that, so because academia has this other way of looking at our languages and doing research. So we've done a whole research investigation and case studies on what are we actually doing. So our languages aren't just set in the 18th and 19th centuries, they're living and they're now. And there's both community and academic resources that people can source on our website, and I think one of the books you can buy through Rutledge or something. But and we have people in community teaching in kinders. We have resources where we can support people to skill up to be able to do those things. We have people doing research. So, for example, Brendan Kennedy, who's also our deputy chair, he works on the Tuddy Tuddy and Waddy Waddy languages around Robinvale area, and he started out with 50 words. That's all they could find, besides place names, which Len will talk about, but place names are a big source for finding and understanding. There's a lot of language out there. So he's been looking at place names, but he's gone from 50 words to 300 because he's been able to spend the time researching and doing the development, specifically in Tuddy and Waddy, because there's a lot on some of the other languages. And myself, I'm been very privileged. My dad started our language revitalisation journey back in the 1990s and worked on recovering what language sources have been, historical stuff, and worked with a linguistic student and produced a dictionary and was doing some classes. So I've been following in his footsteps as the language custodian in developing language, and I'm currently very privileged to be the Vice-Chancellor's Indigenous Research Fellow at RMIT, and one of the key core business focus is the reconstruction of our Gunditjmara grammar, because we got quite a few words. We got enough words that we could be talking if we knew how to talk properly, but we don't have the grammar to put all our words together. We only have some short phrases and sentences and some of the stories. So once I hopefully get that done pretty quick, then we'll be able to move forward and start immersion, because that's the only way we're going to ever get to be speaking again, is through immersion. And there's a lot of immersion methodologies, but that's kind of where I'm at with that. So they're the kinds of things VACL are doing, and if there's any way you have of, providing support or lobbying, we'd very much welcome that, because here in Victoria at this point in time, aside from the training program that the state education are funding, there is no state funding for our work. And it is absolutely essential to Aboriginal people's well-being, identity, culture, and therefore to everyone else's, because we all live here in this country and language is in our land, in our, it surrounds all of us. So it's really important for all of us. I think I'll quit there. Thank you.